my mother.
This is BBC Two. We join Alan Titchmarsh now, who makes a special introduction to this week's Gardener's World.
When Geoff Hamilton died earlier this week, television viewers all over the country must have felt that they'd lost a great friend. For 17 years, on a Friday night, they'd watched him sowing and planting, often in his own garden at Barnsdale, and whether they were keen gardeners or novices, they couldn't have failed to have been impressed by his easygoing manner, his friendly approach, and his sheer passion for gardening. I first met him more than 20 years ago now, when I began to write for a gardening magazine he edited. He had a jacket and tie then, but he became known more recently as the man in the sweatshirt with the jeans that had muddy knees. I guess the muddy knees became Geoff's trademark, along with his passion for organic gardening, and the wire coat hangers, plastic film, and old floorboards, out of which he could make a cold frame that he reckoned looked like the Crystal Palace. Whenever we met, he'd say, "You all right, boy?" I'll miss that. But then a lot of people will miss him. Next week's Gardener's World will be a special tribute to Geoff Hamilton. But tonight, you can see the programme he recorded just 2 days before he died. And as ever, he's on great form. When people would say to me, "What's Geoff Hamilton really like?" I'd have to say, well, he's just what you see. He's a regular guy who's crackers about gardening. And Gardener's World and its millions of loyal viewers was his world, and the world he loved best.
I dare say that your delphiniums have more or less finished flowering now, whereas my little ones here have only just started. But these were the ones that I raised from seed last February, you may well remember it, and I sowed them in modules and grew them on and planted them direct out here. And I'm really rather pleased with the way that they've done, because everything here has flowered in its first year. Now, of course, next year, all these plants will really bulk up and produce some really good flowers, and they'll all flower at the right time too. And of course, they'll go on flowering year after that. Now, the border measures about 8 metres by 1.5 metres. That's 25 feet by 5 feet. And the seed here cost me £30. But I produced enough plants to easily fill this border 10 times over. So if you've got some gardening friends and you can spread the cost amongst you and all grow different things, then you could quite easily fill your whole garden with herbaceous perennials for the cost of an evening out. And if you've got friends who've got an established garden, there's an even cheaper way. Lots of flowers that have finished are now beginning to mature into seed, and some of them couldn't be easier to collect. Things like Aquilegias, for instance, if you just take one of the brown seed heads off the top, hold it upright like that, and then just tip it into your hand, you can see you get a handful of seed like that, and that is probably enough to fill your garden with all the Aquilegias you're going to want. Just put them into an envelope and then sow them on the top of a bit of coir compost, cover them up with grit and put them in a cold frame. They'll produce some really good plants. But others are a little bit more difficult. Now, the vast majority of seeds want to be taken when they're just ripe, and the plant knows much better than you when that is, so you need to be pretty vigilant. With things like these alliums, you want to look at them every day, and as soon as you see that they start shedding their first seeds, that's the time to collect them. Now, you can see there, if you look very closely, that there are some seeds there that are just about to go. So what you need to do with that is to get a nice big paper bag and then very carefully just cut the head off, stick them in the bag like that. I think I'll take another one as well. And then if they're not absolutely dry, then take them back to the greenhouse or a sunny windowsill, put them on a little bit of newspaper, and they will soon fall out, or you can shake them out and once again sow them straight away. I think it's fascinating to be involved in what is really the first stages of the production of life. But, of course, gardening is not all sweetness and light. We do have our problems. And in today's programme, Pippa Greenwood looks at fire blight, a bacterial disease that can be deadly to quite a few plants. Stephen Lacey visits the Great Victorian greenhouses at West Dean. But first, fuchsias. Gay Search has been to a nursery that specialises in producing these attractive and versatile plants.
We've been growing fuchsias since the early 60s, and we moved down here in 1979. The idea was that my late father was hoping to get an early retirement and start the fuchsia nursery. Sadly, though, he died before he got the chance, so I took a while to think about it and started up the nursery in 1985, 1986. I've been doing it just over 10 years now.
Any regrets?
No, definitely not. When you're sort of sitting on a patio surrounded by fuchsias, who can regret it? No, it's hard work, but I thoroughly enjoy doing it.
Why is it, do you think, that fuchsias are so popular?
They're easy to grow. You don't need wonderful conditions for them, and they will flower virtually continuously, given the right conditions. Good feed, plenty of water, and they'll just go on and on and on.
And I suppose they're one of the few spectacular flowers that actually does all right in shade.
Yes, they do love shade. We've learnt that particularly over the last few summers, where we have had the hot, dry weather. The fuchsias do much better in the shady areas. Our patio here is very shaded, and they love it. Put them out in full sun, and apart from a few fuchsias, they really do suffer the consequences.
What would you say were your best sellers at the moment?
I think probably one of the best all-time sellers will have to be Swing Time, which is a big red and white double suited for hanging baskets. Two other good sellers in the hanging basket line are Pink Marshmallow, a large pink fluffy double, and also Devonshire Dumpling, again pale pink and white, but it does sell ever so well. Purely on the name, that one. It's not an easy one to grow, but it's the most beautiful flower. And lately, as well, the ones that are coming are very popular are the aubergine, the beetroot colour fuchsias. They have such rich, deep colours that people sort of do a quick double take and think, wow, what's this? Is this a fuchsia?
Confess, Carol, that I'm not a fan of the big can-can dance of fuchsias. It's the single flowers and the species that I really
Well,
like.
I must admit, in my heart of hearts, I do enjoy the little singles as well. These should be right up your street in here.
Oh, that's lovely. What's that?
That one's Lottie Hobby, one of the smaller flowered ones. These are the Encheleandra type of fuchsias, all very small flowers. This one actually dates from 1832.
Goodness me.
It's nice to show people with the Victorian fuchsias that new isn't necessarily the best.
Yeah.
Some of the old ones, been around 150 years, they're still going strong.
Yes. And this is lovely too. I mean, it's the classic fuchsia colours, the rich purple and the bright red, but because the flowers are so delicate, it's not quite as knock your eye out as the big ones.
That's it. And the sheer profusion of flowers, very much the type that you'd find growing wild in Ireland, down in Cornwall, etc.
So pretty hardy.
Very, very much so. Any of the Magellanica types are very, very tough, and there's a whole range, 20, 30 different Magellanica types.
That is lovely. And this is a different colour break altogether, this lovely orange, isn't it?
That's
wonderful.
it. Again, one of the original species from South America. People tend to think of the original fuchsias as being little red and purples, but you get something like this with 10, 15 flowers on a tress, great large fruit when they start to ripen as well, and something quite exotic.
Yes, and presumably not hardy.
Definitely not in this country, no.
Yeah. And this is not like a fuchsia I've seen before.
That's it. This is fuchsia procumbens. The majority of fuchsias all came from South America, but procumbens and a couple of others come from New Zealand. So they don't bear that much resemblance. And they have the most beautiful little flower, yellow, brown, and with the bright blue pollen.
Oh, that is extraordinary.
They also, when they come into fruit, which is a bit later on than this, large fruit, about the size of a cherry tomato and bright pink.
Really?
So you get
Good to
something...
eat?
Yes.
What does it taste like?
Insignificant grape.
Standards are a good way of growing fuchsias and not that difficult to do, but I've never seen a hoop before. Is that easy?
Ever so easy, yes. And it's a lovely way of showing off the small flowered fuchsias, so you see the flowers in profusion.
So what do you do first?
Firstly, 2 plants in a pot. It's the easiest and quickest way of doing it, so you can make it literally within a couple of minutes. Piece of green plastic coated wire, which we've twisted round, and a couple of canes just at the bottom to give it a bit of support. Pop it in the back, just behind the plants, and then with a few twist-its you can gently pull the plant out.